Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Waqar Shahid Qureshi. He is the Assistant Professor at the Department of Mechatronics Engineering in National University of Sciences and Technology, Pakistan. Dr. Qureshi is a computer vision consultant and an electrical engineer by training with over 16 years of experience of research and development in industry and academia. He received his degree in Doctor of Engineering in 2015 from AIT with focus on computer vision applied to agriculture. His expertise includes mostly applied research in computer vision, image processing, and machine learning for robotics, precision agriculture, 3D scanning, and video surveillance applications using different imaging sensors. So now let's welcome Dr. Qureshi.
Thank you, Shreya, for the nice introduction. Let me start with the slides here. I hope now you can see my slides. I hope the presentation is clear to everyone now.
Yes, clear.
Okay, so again, welcome you all on in today's talk. I would like to thank the GC Connect for helping me to introduce what we are doing here in Pakistan. So it all started when I moved back to Pakistan. Although I was working with a company in Thailand, which produce 3D scanners and 3D printers. But then moving on to Pakistan, I have to decide something that can help the society itself. Because at that time, 3D printers were like they were they had a ban of being exported to Pakistan. So I have to find out a new way to use my energies to help Pakistan in other ways. So it all started when I was doing my PhD. I was working on uh, applying computer vision in the field of agriculture, thanks to Dr. Matthew Daly, that helped me to energize, to squeeze down my ideas to what we did in my PhD. Later on, when I came back, I was again thinking of how to do something for the local market, especially in the field of agriculture, as uh, because as I saw that most of we were an agrarian economy. So right since my childhood, I was introduced that Pakistan was an agrarian economy with most of its GDP focusing coming from the agriculture. But that then when I read it back again, it was not true. We started with around 51% of GDP GDP coming from agriculture in 1951. That went down to 18.5 overall. Uh, so today my talk would be in these four sections. I'll be talking about the background why we should work in agriculture as a as the developing countries, and then my startup, which was named in the local language, Pak Zar Zameen. It states as Pak means pure, and Zar is basically the gold, and Zameen is basically the land. So this itself was a challenging task to come up with a name that people farmers know locally, instead of giving a hi-fi name in English. So it was better. One of the objective was to ingrace into the local market. So we choose to opt for, at least for Pakistan, to opt a name that is local to the Pakistani people. But now, as we are flourishing to other countries, for example, just recently we'll be having our incubation in Saudi Arabia. we'll be moving with different names there. Then we'll talk about the projects that we were doing in this agri startup, and then one of few of the future project that we are working on, and it will be probably ready by next year. So it's more on the fruit maturity analysis using devices that are handy. So let's talk about the agriculture landscape of the world. We see that the global agriculture production has tripled over the last 50 years, but then still we see people are hungry. Around 820 million suffer from hunger, and out of them 25 billion suffer from malnutrition. So we still have to focus on agriculture. So we cannot take the global supply food chain as granted. We have to work for it to increase our produce. To the fact we have in all over the world, we have limited natural resources because of the climate change, global warming effect. The produce is in some part of the world is decreasing. The water scarcity, water shortage is happening in some part of the world. And then again, because of putting more and more fertilizer into the sand, into the soil, we are degrading the soil itself. And then the loss of biodiversity because of putting more and more pesticides and more urea into the soil. And then we have to, so the thing is we have to utilize these resources very efficiently, and then we have to minimize again the food loss, and this has to be done over the whole value chain that we have for food. And then we have to increase the sustainability. It should not be as for a short period of time. It should sustain itself over a longer period of time. And then we have to adopt these local conditions. So for different countries, we have different procedures to grow crop. If you're growing wheat in USA, that probably, or in Italy or in Europe, that probably might not be the cases in Pakistan. We have a different soil, we have different culture, we have different and we cannot say farmers directly that you have to adopt new technologies just by next day. You have to advance gradually. And then with this, obviously we should create decent jobs. I see a lot of potential in the agriculture field. We see that a lot of agriculture services can be given to the farmers, especially in the developing countries. And probably if we start focusing on providing some kind of a services to the farmers, probably it is we can also earn a handsome of amount. And I'll talk about it in in a couple of slides. And then yes, the revenue should be there. So looking back to the Pakistani agriculture landscape, this probably would be similar to other developing countries around South Asia. So our growth rate in Pakistan is 2.4% growth rate. And this is I'm talking about from the survey of Pakistan 2019, and our GDP growth is around 3.4%. So, but then the agricultural growth rate is only 0.85%. So this is kind of an alarming situation here. And then our agriculture GDP has dropped down from 51% to 18.5%, which is 0.4% less than in 2009. And then if you go and see the different produce of agriculture in Pakistan, we are good in livestock, we are good in fisheries, we are good in some of the crops like maize, wheat, we are going good trees, but then we are cotton used to be one of the great produce of Pakistan. Sugarcane itself, we did not had any problem with producing sugar in Pakistan. And then rice, one of the best rice in the world comes from Pakistan. And then we see this is the emergency situation here. We are the growth rate is like in minus. So this means that people are shifting to other crops. This should not be, and there are many factors which are driving people to stop, let's say, growing cotton, or stop growing sugarcane, or stop growing rice. But then we have to have different technologies fusing together to come up with a decision tool to help farmers which crop should they grow and how good they can grow. Then we talk about some ICT for farmers. We see this is all, and this should be applicable to all the developing countries here. Uh, so we see that people use phone advisories, marketing through phones, and then we see that people interact with the voice calls with the farmers. But then there are some other tools available. For example, we have website for agriculture information and marketing. Now I know a couple of websites also in Pakistan and maybe some other countries also. They have information about how to grow different crops or what to do at different stages of the crop growth. Then we see we have social media, fintechs available for the farmers, and then we see the satellite data, satellite weather stations, and then it can be universally accessible by different people, right? Then we have real-time data coming directly from the farms using IoTs, for example, the soil condition, the water level, and etc. And then these all can be combined together into a cloud, into a data center that can basically predict different how or what type of advisories should be given to the farmers. But then and then the oldest technique is still valid, is the broadcasting through television and other advisories. Now let us see how Pakistan, the ICT footprint in Pakistan. So this data is coming from the Telenor and Jazz. So we have around 25 million farmers in Pakistan, and approximately 54% are registered farmer subscribers to Telenor and Jazz. And if you look closely, out of these registered users, 16% use smartphones only. So 84% still use basic phones. So coming up with an application, a mobile application that probably the farmers would use would kind of like overwhelming for the farmers, because only let's say 16% of them are using smartphones, and then out of those 16%, 30% of smartphone users use apps. Other than that, they don't even use smartphones except for watching YouTube videos. And then approximately 8% of the farmers are between the age of 15 to 26, and 50% are of them are between the age of 27 to 44. So this is a good sign for us that most of the farmers lie in the middle age range, and they are young. And but then 40% are still over the age of 45. So and then we have most of the farmers that are subscribed to these telecommunication services are from Punjab. So we have five provinces, and 70% are of them Punjab, and then 17% are from Sindh, and 7% are from KPK, and 6% is the rest of the world. And then most of them are 80% of these subscribers who are from the rural or the farming areas are male, and 20% are females. So how do we utilize them? And then looking back to the two channels of communication with the farmers. One is the conventional channel that we call as CC, that includes the SMS, voice messaging services, and interactive voice recordings, and the call centers. And then there are digital channels like the Android apps, Facebook, and YouTube. And it is quite interesting to see that the split between the conventional channel to the direct channel is 90 to 10%. So only 10% of the people are using the digital channel, and most of them are still relying on SMS and IVR services. So we have to come up with some solution that could, through these telecommunication companies and through this conventional channel. And if you talk about fintech, then probably most of the people know about Easy Paisa, Jazz Cash. These are all microfinancing applications, but then only 10% of them people use them in Pakistan. So how do that summarizes to what I wanted to do in the start. What we did is what we wanted to provide innovative agri-tech services and solution using satellite and aerial imagery for monitoring of crops. And then we also started a precision aerial spraying to the farmers to increase their yield. So we'll go and see how we are doing it. So in the next half of the slide, you can see a demonstration of our application. So we started with making our own app on the Google Play Store, but then we realized actually that it is quite difficult for market it to the local customer in Pakistan. So we have to find, as I show as I just shown you a couple of slides ago, that ICT is mostly with the telecom. We can ingress into the farmers market by pitching in with or by fusing our services with the telecommunication company. So that what we did after that. So anyhow, this is the application that you can see. You can select the name of the crop, and then you can actually so all we need currently is the geolocation of your crop, and along with that, what are you growing there, and what is your sowing date. So this is the the information that is very essential to what the analytics that we are providing. But then you can always track your crop. For example, you can add what type of what type of urea you are putting it in, what type of pesticides you are putting in, and what type, and when did you water your plant. So this again would need people to this can help us. This can help those pesticide company who are basically tracking their customers by provide so this would help them to actually give them advisory services. So currently this is all being done locally by local people who each, let's say, each district has a one person or two person from a pesticide company who go and interact with the farmers and take this information and then provide them advisory services. uh, then what we do is we provide water stress models. So this is just a map that we give to the farmers in terms of identification of water rich areas. Then we also give crop health analysis in terms of a map uh, that you just saw in the previous slide. It gives you a normal vegetation index of, let's say, of your crop, and it gives you an intra-field variability of your crop. So how your crop is growing over the period of time. Then we also can give nitrogen prescription. It basically means that we can tell farmers that at what time based on their actual uh, the time they give fertilizer to the crops, at what and what quantity they should give to the farmer. So we actually tested it in with a few farmers, and and we found that by giving them nitrogen prescription, they were able to save 10% of their fertilizer, and they were able to increase their yield almost 8 to 9%. And then we also in our application we use weather forecasting using weather API. So for those people who are actually new to naive to what we are talking about, vegetation index is basically the ratio of the near infrared and the red visible light. So if you see in this figure on your right side, you can see a tree where you can see that the healthy plant can absorb 8% of the red light, and it can reflect back 50% of the near infrared. And for unhealthy plant, we it absorb more red light. So this means that basically NDVI quantifies the vegetation indirectly by measuring the difference between the NIR and the red light. So and this NIR ranges from -1 to 1 and this, if you see in the figure below, let's say for a particular period of time, let's say at time t is equal to 3, if a plant is dead, then it will be, the values would be around -1 to 0, and if a plant is unhealthy, although it is growing, so it will be around 0 to -33. So but then these values are not fixed. It depends upon different crops. So what we did is we wanted to start with a drone based crop health analysis, but then we found out that drone-based crop health analysis is quite expensive, especially for the developing countries. But then we looked for what else we can do. We found out that there is a satellite called Sentinel-2, which basically started in June 7, 2015, which provides its European space provided by the European Space Agency, and it basically gives you a resolution of 10 meters square per pixel. And so Sentinel-2 is a free to use satellite. You can use the data. So it gathers data with 13 bands in the visible and near infrared and short wave infrared part of the spectrum, and anyone can download it. But then what we did is we did some processing over it, and then we are using a third party API. The processing is being done by our third party, by our partners, and they do the processing on the freely available Sentinel-2 data, and then we process all those parameters that I previously show you in the slide. So then the main task was to how do we give the advisory to the farmer. So what we did is we actually we know that for example for rice, let's say starting from the sowing of the seed, it goes through germination, then sprouting, seedling, and then flowering, and then the harvest. So what we did, for example, the average crop cycle of rice is 120 days. We divided it into 4 phases, right? And then for each phase, we found out what should be the value of a healthy plant and what should be a value of a non-healthy plant. So based on that, we come up with some values, and this experiment was done on around 12 samples in Punjab. And so the experiment started in last year. So the crop health analysis, the satellite data is available since 2015. So if we have figures for a particular farm, for even say for last 2 or 3 years, we can basically get that particular data for a particular farm. So what we did is we found out that we did this experiment in 2018 on rice, where we started in July. The rice crop started with the nursery transplanting in July 2018. In August, we applied application was applied to the fertilizer. Application of fertilizer was given to the farm, and then first application of pesticide called as CARTAP was given. And then in September we had different other application, and then in October there was another spray of insecticide, and then the harvest. So if you see on the right hand side, you will see that what I wrote on the left hand side is uh, it's it can be pictorially viewed on on what you can see on the right hand side. So in July you can see all of them are red, and the the images show basically also the intra field variability, how the crop is going for within the land itself. For example, if there is a 2 hectares of land, how different parts of the 2 hectares is processing in terms of the crop health. And then we see in August we started to have green parts, and then in September it reached to the maximum NDVI value, and then it again started to decrease in October, in late September, and then October, and then by the end of October it was the harvesting date, and at that time the yield was around 51.5 mun. 1 mun is 40 kg. So we produce 51.5 mon per acre. Then in 2019 we repeated the same experiment for that particular land, and then we saw that the yield was around 48 mon, and then different again the different fertilizer being applied, different herbicide and pesticide were also applied as per the advisories uh, by the farmers itself. So we did not intervene in any of the processes. We just remotely sense through them from satellite, and monitoring what tracking them what they are putting into their farms. So it was a direct interaction with the farmers. So now this is a quite interesting thing. So this is a time series data of a rice crop in 2018. So now if you can see that basically this graph on the y-axis, you see the vegetation index, which is basically the indirect relation. It has an indirect relation with the uh, crop health. And then on the x-axis you see different dates. So these are the maximum these are the average values that we had for that particular phases. You can see with the dotted lines different phases, phase 1, uh, this is phase 1, this is phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. For each for each phase we have defined some maximum minimum value for a crop to be healthy. And if that crop is not in that region, then we give different advisories, or if it is going well, then we give different advisories to the farmer. Since later on in 2019 we had the similar graph. So if you see back and forth, they are kind of a similar graph that is started with the small values, it increases and then it goes down. Similarly here you see that we had a graph coming from the bottom going up, achieving its maximum NDVI value, and then it's going down. So this means that we can actually, if we know what is the sowing date of the crop, and then we know what crop that he's growing, we can actually predict the harvesting time, and we can actually see how well the crop is going. And we can do it for, let's say, for different years. Let's say this is 2018 and this is 2019, and we can, let's say for that this person is we can basically identify whether, or we can quantify, in other words, we can quantify the crop, how the crop is behaving for over the period of time, and we can also predict its yield over a period of time. So this way we actually did it for the rice crop. We also did it for the wheat crop and some other crops also, but then it has to be done for uh, each crop different, for each and every crop that we grow in Pakistan. So then this graph is basically showing you the relevance, or the at different intervals of time for 2018 and 19. And if you see that the crop in 2019 was going good, better than 2018, but then at the end this was a period when we had a very high winds and rains in 2019, which basically at the end uh, went to decrease the NDVI value itself, and the overall yield was less for 2019 as compared to 2018. So this what we then we came out that we should interact with the telecommunication company. So what we have done is we interacted with Telenor, which is telecommunication company, and they basically used our APIs into their application here. If you see, this is written in Urdu. They have an English version also. This is called as the health of the crop. So what we did is it was done in 2019, and now it is been launched just recently, a couple of weeks ago. We did this experiment for wheat, rice, sugarcane, potato, and corn. But then we are and obviously these are only for straw crops. We are not this type of analysis won't be applicable for fruits or for trees. So we are only focusing on straw crops that have a small period of from growth to when they been harvested. So what we do actually, we get the sowing date from the farmer, we get the NDVI map from the farmer, and then based on that we we are making advisories, and that advisories is not only based on mobile phone application, but they are also IVRs. So we are also producing interactive voice recording messages. So if we know the farmer sowing date and where the geolocation of the farm is, then actually we can send him IVR messages of the advisories that we want to give to the farmer. So currently, again, it is mostly based on the few sample areas that we have done. They are hard coded right now, but as more and more data is coming in, we'll moving towards a machine learning based algorithm, and then we can also incorporate the weather prediction. So currently we are not incorporating the weather prediction, but then it can be incorporated inside this our predictive engine that will be giving advisory services to the farmers. Uh, so uh, so this gives us not only the advisory service, but then again from the mobile app, if people who are using mobiles, they can also see the intra-field variability. If you see on the image here, you can see that the red areas are those areas which are not going well at a particular instance of time, and the more greener areas are going great for a particular period of time. Along with this web API, we also generate images for the farmers. And then, so input are the NDVI value, crop name, and the sowing date, and the output of the crop health, the stage at he is in, and the action and purposes that has to be done by the farmers. Uh, uh, so this is again we are not doing it for the first time. There are other competitors who are already doing this. For example, in Thailand, I know there's a company called Recult who is doing uh, who is providing services that are similar to what we are doing. And so this has to be done. We had around now for our applications around 1,000 downloads for only our application, and then we have around 19,000 acres that we are monitoring right now using our web APIs, using our own application. So then we are pitching it with this application not only to the telecommunication company that we have already done, that is based on revenue based model, but then we are also pitching this thing to other pesticide company, because they also have a similar model and they do it using their field agents, right? So what we are proposing to them, that let's say you can put this tab, you can give the services along with your sack of fertilizers. So for each fertilizer you can give, let's say, 1 acre of, because one sack uh, is for 1 acre of land, and if they are giving 1 acre of land of sack, then they can also subscribe to our services, and then they can also monitor the health of their crop during this period of time. So again, we this could be a very beneficial. These are all figures in Pakistani rupees, but then if you just realize, we can see that uh, uh, we can get a good revenue out of these kind of services if anyone would like to provide these services for their countries. But then again, this is not only the solution that can be built on these time series analysis. So the graph that I showed you before for 2018 2019, these are called as time series analysis. So it can give you the mean, median, maximum, minimum, and variance of the crop. So that means that actually you can measure the crop yield, you can actually measure how good the crop is going. So this could directly be linked with whether a particular loan should be given to a farmer who is growing a good crop, or whether his loan could be rejected. So although there are loans for agricultural industry, and they are for the farmers, but there is no criteria to quantify the any loan based on the yield, based on the actual growing of the crop. And that is just because you cannot we were not able to quantify how the crop is going during the particular period of time. So most of the time they give loan based on how many acres of land you have. For example, if you have 4 acres of land, you get some amount, and if you have 10 acres of land, you get another amount as a loan. But then this can quantify crop yield, and if we are able to quantify crop yield, then we will be able to give loans based on to different people. For example, if there is two farmers, they one of both of them has the same area of land, but then let's say one farmer even don't grow a crop. He, let's say, do some other business, and he gets the loan, and he pays it off because of the other means. And then there is another farmer who has, let's say, 4 acres of land, but then he is only dependent on that farm produce. So then how do you quantify to which farmer should we give loan? So this is a very quantifiable measure for the farmers. Again, we are still we have not launched it, but then we are it is a it has already been we have already done some sample testing, and then it could be the next step towards what we are doing. But then drone based mapping is also good. It gives you less higher resolution. 1 pixel is around 10 centimeter, and we can cover large areas, but then the cost is very high, around uh, it costs around for let's say, if I talk in, it costs around 10 to $12 per acre per visit, as compared to what we provided from the satellite. It's quite cheap. It's not even 0.1% of it. But then there are some specific tasks that has only to be monitored from drone based analysis. For example, if you would like to see fertilizer treatment for a particular fertilizer, then you always have you have to go towards drone based mapping. So we also
Sorry,
provide that.
Dr. Qureshi, can we are running out of time, so if you could
We have
conclude
15 more
your
minutes, right?
sorry, actually we will start the discussions also, so we can wrap up
Okay, okay. So I'll wrap it up. We also provide a so this is a I'll skip this part. We provide aerial spraying services. This was the first time that the drone went from the university to the farmers. Most of the in Pakistan, it was only it started in 2015. Some universities started this agriculture spraying drone, but then they were totally lab based experiments. So we were the first company in Pakistan to introduce the services. Again, we did not design the specific model. We just bought some parts from China, and then we integrated it in Pakistan. The idea was to introduce the services to the farmers, because at that time there was kind of a people even don't know wanted to I mean, people did not know where it can be used. So we actually utilized it and showed them how it can be used. So it can save 80% of the water, it can save 10%. So these were the figures that I was looking from the companies that we were from China. But then we actually experimented, and then we showed it to the customers that this is actually how you can save water and how you can save pesticides. So we experimented on uh, so this is just a small brief comparison, that from the manual spraying, you spray 60 liters of water, as compared to the drones spray, which is almost 10 liters. Then it takes 16 minutes for a farmer, as compared to being done by the drone, which takes only 4 to 5 minutes for 1 acre of land. And we did some experiment for manual, and to calculate the efficiency, and we found that the efficiency of the aerial spraying is better than the normal efficiency by using manual spraying. So we did it for different crops. We did it for sugarcane. Sugarcane is the best best crop, especially when it is grown to 3 meters, then there is no other means to spray anything on it except using aerial spraying. So, and then recently last year, we almost got 1,000 acres of services for spraying for sugar cane. So this is the revenue model. Again, someone who would like to replicate this model in his country, he can replicate it, and just in 3 months you can recover the cost of the drone. That is almost 6,000 to 7,000 US dollars. Sorry. Then we are working on the food maturity devices. We found out that non-destructive testing is very helpful for the fruits. For example, if you go and buy a watermelon, how can you be sure by not cutting it out, how can you be sure this is a sweet melon? So this is not, it's a mature technology now, and we are experimenting it, and this has to be trained for different fruits and different varieties of fruit. For example, if it is done for mangoes in USA, you cannot directly use it in Pakistan. You have to train your these devices in Pakistan in order to use it in for varieties that are grown in Pakistan. So we are doing this experiment for mangoes, for melons, and for apples. Thank you very much. That